This is it, everybody. This is the refreshed 2025 Ram 2500. There's also, of course, a refreshed 3500 for 2025, and we see some pretty big changes under the hood. We get significantly more standard power out of the Cummins diesel engine. Yep, the Cummins returns, and importantly, we get a new heavy-duty 8-speed ZF automatic transmission. That has long been one of my complaints about the Ram heavy-duty line, is that their transmissions were a little bit behind the times, but the 68 RFE is gone, the Aisin 6-speed is gone, and in its place, every model is now going to get an 8-speed automatic. Let's talk about the other changes up front, around the truck, and of course, under the hood. First, let's talk about the exterior design, because of course things have been tweaked here and there, but the structure of the Ram heavy-duty lineup remains the same. So we still have the biggest cab in the segment. The Mega Cab is definitely a reason to buy this over the F250 and F350 if you're looking for a lot of room in the back. That Mega Cab is so big that it really makes this regular four-door cab look kind of small. I'll show you that in a bit if I can here. Of course, we have the Cummins turbo diesel badging there. We also have the new wheel designs here. The front end is definitely in keeping with the rest of the Ram lineup. Subtle changes here and there to the design. We have full LED headlights. There are two different basic designs. So this is the multi-module projector reflector combination, where we have reflectors up top, projectors down below, DRLs above that, LED fog lights below that, and of course tons of different grille options depending on the trim you're looking at. If we take a look at this Tradesman trim 3500 chassis cab, yep, chassis cab is of course returning. We get reflector LED headlights, different design with the turn signals down there. Those are also LEDs. Of course, lots of black plastic up front in this base model, but we get some nice touches outside on even the base trims, like the tow hooks up front, and they're fully boxed recovery hooks, which is something that I really appreciate. Coming around, you'll notice this does have a few options on it, so it's not actually a fully base model, including, of course, that Cummins diesel engine. The heavy-duty truck lineup, this is the last stand for the Hemi engine. So if you still want a 6.4-liter Hemi, you can get it here, and you won't get it really in anything else in the lineup. The nice large tow mirrors remain. We have LED lighting, of course, LED turn signal repeaters there as well. The multi-mirror design over here on this side, and then you can see the camera for the 360-degree camera system. One of the interesting things we'll get to in just a bit is that Ram has grafted on the electronics packages from the Ram 1500 into the HD truck line. And that means, of course, we get the latest infotainment systems, the latest instrument clusters, etc., and features like the 360-degree camera setup. We also get the availability of a 2.4 kilowatt inverter on board. Now, back here in the rear, you'll notice they're just 120 volt outlets. So if you were hoping for, 30 amps of 240 volt power, you're gonna have to take a look at a half-ton truck with the onboard inverter packages there. If I close the tailgate, you'll notice that the rear end design, it's pretty similar to the outgoing 2500 and 3500. Towing capacities, we'll get to that in just a second. Now, in case you're wondering where Ram is putting that 2.4 kilowatt inverter, I can't speak about every model, but in the Mega Cab, it's located in that storage compartment right there behind the rear passenger seat on the driver's side. Now, one odd detail about the onboard inverter is that this power outlet for the rear passengers that's part of the center console, it's rated for just 400 watts. So most of the power output capability is going to the back. Back here we have even more USB ports, and then in this model, heated rear seats. First, we should talk about how we get to those high towing numbers. Under this hood, you'll have the choice, as before, of a gasoline engine or a diesel engine. But unlike before, there's no standard output and high output version of the optional Cummins turbo diesel engine. Every diesel is going to get the same power figure, 430 horsepower and a whopping 1,075 pound-feet of torque. If you opt for the 6.4-liter Hemi, you get 405 horsepower, 429 pound-feet of torque. Those numbers have been adjusted a little bit versus last year due to differing emission standards for 2025. But again, the big thing under this hood is that we're going to get a new 8-speed automatic transmission. The 6.4-liter got the 8-speed previously, but the diesel, that was a different matter. It had the in-house designed 68 RFE transmission for quite some time, and then of course the optional Aisin 6-speed transmission from some of the medium-duty trucks out there in the world, jammed under this hood to improve towing capacity. And that's because up till this point, we haven't had 8-speed automatic transmissions that could handle this much torque. But fortunately, ZF Transmissions designed a brand new 8-speed automatic that we have also seen in some other really, really big vehicles out there in the world. And now they've mated it with the legendary Cummins turbo diesel engine. It is still 2 gears down on the Ford and the Chevy, of course, but exactly how that plays out in the real world remains to be seen. I suspect it's not going to make too big of a deal. The 8-speed automatic transmission is going to improve fuel economy, it's going to improve responsiveness, and it's going to improve performance by a big, big margin. They're saying this is going to be at least 1 full second quicker 0 to 60 in comparable trims versus last year's Cummins turbo diesel Ram. That's a really big difference, and it's all thanks to those extra gears. The 8-speed transmission has also allowed Ram to adjust the final drive ratio, so it's no longer as aggressive in the high tow limit models. That means that towing capacity does drop down ever so slightly versus last year, but it's still a totally bonkers over 36,000 pounds of towing capability. The big deal though is that whether you're towing that weight or you're not, you're going to get better fuel economy than before. And that, of course, combined with the optional 50-gallon gas tank, means you can drive this on those bladder-busting journeys significantly longer than last year's model. Now let's take a closer look at the 6.7-liter Cummins engine. Yep, 6.7 liters. There were some rumors swirling around out there that we might get a mega Cummins or something like that, but that's not happening, at least not for the moment. Ram says that they have focused on improving serviceability and some dependability items with this engine. So we get a new fuel pump. You'll notice we get the oil filter nicely top mounted right there. And the fuel filters, this was an area where customers had asked for some changes. Fuel filters are now over here top mounted on this side as well. We have drain knobs right there so that way you can drain the fuel before replacing the filter element. That definitely makes servicing a lot easier than before. And because this is an inline 6 engine, we do get just a smidge more room on the sides of the engine for some maintenance tasks. That's where those fuel filters are located in situ under the hood. You know, admittedly, things are still jammed in pretty tightly under this hood because this is a pretty big inline 6 engine. But again, some tasks might be a little bit easier to complete in this engine design under this hood than some of the V8 competition. Although clearly not as easily as in this beauty, Ram brought around the original Dodge Ram Cummins turbo diesel truck. Just check that engine out. That's just absolutely gorgeous under the hood. Talk about room to operate here. Lots and lots of room. Let's dive into more of those numbers now. Payload and towing figures are of course going to be really high, whether we're talking about the 1-ton or the 3/4 ton models. And those naming schemes are really archaic because you'll be able to get 7,590 pounds of rated payload in your 3,500 1-ton truck. And if you get the diesel engine, that is going to drop down, of course, because the diesel is heavier, but we're still talking about 3 tons of maximum payload. Max towing, 36,610 pounds in the 3,500 with the diesel engine, 18,150 if you choose the gasoline engine. On the 3/4 ton front, we're talking 20,000 pounds of towing with the diesel, 17,750 with the gas. So there's actually not too much difference in terms of the towing capability on the gas side. Payload, of course, that's the bigger difference. You get 4,320 pounds in the gasoline model, 2,750 pounds of payload in the diesel model, because that Cummins turbo diesel badge, it's pretty heavy, but the engine under the hood is even heavier, of course. Now, if you were hoping that the rumors of an updated 7-point-something liter Cummins turbo diesel might be true, well, you're gonna have to wait for a bit because Ram did not have any comment on a mega Cummins coming soon. While we're talking about towing, we should talk about trailering tech. Back on this red model, we have the pretty typical 7-pin wiring harness for a trailer. Then we have this connector, which has 12 pins. That's for the surround camera system that's available. And then over here, we have yet another camera input. This one is an analog camera input by all appearances. Hopefully we'll have some clarification on that. But we also have all of the latest trailering software from Ram, which includes features like the trailer reverse steering, the trailer tire pressure monitoring, and of course those various camera views. And that's in addition, of course, to all of those other camera views you can get all the way around the truck. and an available rear load leveling air suspension, which this particular model does not have, but I think is one of the better features available in the 3/4 ton segment. Let's start looking at the interior with the seats first. I apologize for the dinging and the bright lights and the camera. The lighting in the studio is a little bit harsh. One interesting thing is that we do not get the updated seat designs from the new Ram 1500. So this still has the same basic seat design as before, with two-way adjustable lumbar support, not four-way lumbar, no seat massage, no anti-fatigue functionality, etc. And those are features that we find in some of the competitive trucks. So I am a little bit surprised that Ram did not graft those onto this one. On the other hand, we still have one of the biggest cabs in the segment. And I'm not just talking about the mega cab that is clearly huge, we'll take a look at that in a moment, but even the regular four-door cab, it's really roomy. That front seat's more or less adjusted for me at 6 feet tall. Headroom, it is a little bit more limited in this cab because we have the moonroof in this model. It's not a panoramic design, just a regular moonroof up there over the front row, and that does cause a pretty decent loss in headroom in this area. And for the roofline to have kind of an unusual kind of dished in shape up there. Still have a decent hump in the middle of the back of this cab, but still plenty of room for taller folks. And of course, lots of room over here on this side as well. Now, fortunately, Ram brought along a number of different models for us to take a look at, including a tradesman model with more or less the base interior. We still have the parking brake release over here on the left side of the driver's side, which, you know, for some reason I always end up pulling instead of the hood release, which is in the middle. So lots of the structure, as you can see, remains the same. This particular model has the bench seat in the middle, so you can see that pretty aggressive hump there. Go ahead and hop in, so that way the vehicle stops dinging at me. Since this is the tradesman model, logically we have lots and lots of hard plastic in here, whether we're talking about the dashboard top, the hollow bin right there rather than the double glove box, or of course the doors, which are all hard plastic, just as you'd expect in a vehicle that's designed to be used as a tow truck or recovery truck, work truck, farm vehicle, etc. Lots of just sort of easy to clean plastics going on here. We have the latest 8.4 approximately inch infotainment system from the Stellantis groups. This is running basically their latest software on a smaller screen. You'll notice that the screen is pretty bright and pretty crisp, but it's not as fully featured as some of the other systems in their lineup. It's also a little bit difficult to see in the lighting that we have here in this truck. Down below that, we have a lot of physical controls for things like the climate control, volume, tune, some buttons for the lane keeping assistance system. Really nicely integrated auxiliary switches. I have to say that's something that I really appreciate, the fact that we have the ability to have those auxiliary switches and they're so easy to access. Also, lots of USB ports. You can see 4 USB ports that interface with the system. Down here, storage cubby, change holder, etc. 3 big cup holders right there in the middle. And again, keeping in mind this is the bench seat version. This is, of course, lift-upable, lack of a better word. This is what the key looks like in this generation. So you can see we get a double click for opening that tailgate in the back. Soft touch armrest, that's really the only soft touch component in here because the armrests on the doors, those are pretty hard. The steering wheel, that looks pretty similar to before. Same round sort of design here. Same gear limit buttons over here on this side. Controls for the adaptive cruise control over here. We get more active safety and driver assistance tech in this version than before. And for a lot of the base trucks, you'll notice we get a very similar instrument cluster to last year's. So not too many changes in this model. Going back to the red Laramie truck, you'll see we have that two-way adjustable lumbar support there, powered seats. The fixed in place center console here, of course, because this does not have the bench seat option. We get a really, really big touchscreen infotainment system, basically borrowed out of the Ram 1500 quite logically in the dashboard. This model has a second glove compartment right here, just as before. Not a lot's changed on the basic design or basic structure of the dashboard, and really nothing has changed on the front door design. That's one interesting thing. A while back, Ram grafted their new dashboard design from the 1500 into the HD trucks, and they've basically updated that dashboard design without updating the rest of the interior. So that is definitely something important to keep in mind. So again, that seat design, that's largely the same as before. Moving back over to the dashboard and going down the dash here, you'll notice we have the integrated trailer brake controller, gain buttons there, the controls for the four-wheel drive system over here, the engine start stop button, that's above that. We then have 2 wireless charge mats with that updated center console design there, big cup holders, lots of storage going on here in the middle. Again, 4 USB ports that interface with that system. The Ram logo here right over that padded center armrest, even more storage under there. And what's kind of nice is that this is reconfigurable, so you can slide that around in this big storage area and apportion it however you like. There's also a second tier if you want to store some of those smaller knickknacks there. And again, there's that same key design. Then we have 2 cup holders behind that for the rear passengers. This is basically the same full LCD cluster that we find in the Ram 1500. This is an early pre-production model, and of course the software has been rebooted a bazillion times because the battery actually just died since we've been filming this with the lights on, etc. So it is definitely fully featured. You have a bunch of different layouts to choose from. If you'd rather have more traditional gauges, if you'd rather have more of a digital look, all of that's available. Basically the same sort of layout that we find in the regular Ram. Ram has updated the door switches with their latest design. You can see that we get auto up-down windows up front, not auto in the back, and the latest controls for the side view mirrors. This button here allows you to adjust this little mirror right there electrically, and then it toggles to control that bigger mirror up there. And then this button over here, that's the power extension for those tow mirrors. I really like the way they've done this design and the ability to not just electrically adjust the larger portion of the mirror, but also the small one below. The other 2 buttons, as you'd expect, those are lights. So we get a light that shines down and to the back and a light that shines to the side. And that would be this one right here, and of course the lights I showed you earlier on the side. The Rebel, of course, returns for 2025. We have the Rebel logo embossed there on the seats. Taking a closer look around some of the other options, this one you can see we have the power adjustable pedals, the manual steering column here, which still only adjusts for tilt. It does not telescope. That's another thing that did not quite get borrowed from the Ram 1500 lineup. Ram completes the update on the Rebel on the outside with some unique wheels for this model, and then the rest of the exterior, it basically gets the same changes as the rest of the Ram 2500 lineup, including the updated front end design with the projector LED headlights there, and of course, one of the various different grills that you can get across the line. Now, how about that mega cab? Well, here it is. This is still one reason to buy Ram's heavy-duty line of trucks. It's this extra approximately 12 inches or so in the back. And that gives us a lot of not only storage behind the seats, you can see the cargo hooks there, the top tether anchor for child seats. That actually is pretty easy to install them. There's some storage over here under the floor, but you can also recline the rear seat backs. That's pretty unique because we get a significant amount of recline. I'll go ahead and hop in here so I can try and show you this if I can. I've reclined it, and that's the amount of recline we get in this seat back design. Quite a lot of recline. We also get a significant amount of headroom. And here you can see that sort of dish shape that we get in the entire lineup if you get the regular panoramic, sorry, not non-panoramic moonroof. It's a standard size moonroof just above there. Now, the electronics and controls, those are basically the modern design. So you can see that this is kind of a, I guess you'd say an automotive turducken. It's a little bit of this and a little bit of that jammed into the shell of the previous generation Ram heavy duties. The Limited Longhorn continues to have my favorite interior in this segment from a design perspective. It's not just the brown leather and the brown accents, which I do find quite attractive. It's the combination of materials as well that they've done a really good job with. You can see the contrasting piping there, the different colored stitching, the fabric inserts on the seat, the emboss work that we find on the bolsters for the side there, and of course the seat bottom cushion bolsters, and of course the doors as well. Wood trim, as you'd expect in this model, but we also get, thanks to the upgraded electronics package, we get the passenger screen, which I'm not the biggest fan of. Unfortunately, this model does not have its battery connected, so I can't show you that, but you've seen it before. It's the same one in the Grand Wagoneer, the same one in the Ram 1500, the same one that I'm not quite clear why I might want that in my truck, because it does give up one of the glove compartments and your passenger could just use a tablet or something. That would just be easier in my mind. Below that in this model, you can see the multi-part floor mats, which I also really appreciate, where you can actually unbuckle that carpet section and have an all-weather mat. But then you can also see the pretty big bulge that we get in this platform right there for the four-wheel drive system. Decently sized glove compartment here. You'd have trouble getting some of those bigger tablet computers inside. And here's how the dashboard all looks together with that screen off. So wood trim there, lots of different textures cascading down there. And every model is now going to get the column shifter, which does make a lot of sense because I think that frees up some of the center console space and some of the dashboard space rather than knobs or more of a traditional console shifter. If you're interested in a real heavy-duty truck, a 4500 or a 5500, you'll be pleased to know that most of these changes apply to this model as well. Different power output figures, of course, happen from that Cummins turbo diesel engine because of the different rating scale for medium-duty trucks, but they're instantly identifiable by those massive fender flares up front because we get wider axles, of course, different tires there, of course, and 10-bolt hubs and wheels. But the big thing is that on the inside, we get all of the same interior updates that we find in the rest of the Ram HD lineup. So we get the new infotainment system there in the middle, lots of USB ports, dual wireless chargers, things like that. We get the updated instrument cluster. This one does not have a key in it, so I can't turn it on. All those updates apply to the interior of this model as well. So they decided not to orphan the 4500 and 5500, but that of course means that really the entire lineup is still, of course, getting that same seat design that you see right there. Now it's time to get down to brass tacks. How much is the new Ram 2500 going to cost you? Well, the tradesman version, which clearly does not look like this red truck next to me, is going to be $45,565 plus a nearly $2,000 destination charge. If you want four-wheel drive on your Hemi-equipped tradesman, then that's going to be $48,495, again, plus that destination charge. If you want the diesel, that is going to be significantly more expensive. The least expensive diesel for 2025 is going to be $58,160 plus that destination charge, of course. Now, if you want a 3500, that's going to be obviously more expensive, but the delta is actually pretty small across the lineup. That's $46,570, so it's about a $1,000 bump if we're talking about tradesman versus tradesman. The Power Wagon, that's of course coming back. It's been a very popular model in their heavy-duty lineup. That's going to start at $68,645. I have to admit, I'm really happy that Ram has tried to keep their pricing under control, because if there's one thing we've seen lately in the truck segment, but especially with Ram's trucks lately, has been that their price tags have accelerated pretty rapidly. I'm also somewhat surprised that we're not seeing a tungsten model or anything like that in the lineup, at least not yet, because that would probably raise that price tag even further. However, we do have a lot of tech on the inside and a lot of luxury options. So if you're the kind of person that spends hours and hours and hours a day in your heavy-duty truck, this is going to be one of the most comfortable interiors in this segment. Although the jury is still going to be out a little bit about seat comfort, because that has been one of my points of complaint previously in the Ram 2500 and 3500 was front seat comfort, and the front seat frame design does not appear to be largely changed over last year's. And that means that I find the Ram 1500 seats a little bit more comfortable. If there's one additional thing that I would love to see Ram stuff into their heavy-duty truck lineup, it would be the seats from the Ram 1500, but that's not something that we see at the moment. On the other hand, the 8-speed automatic transmission and the Cummins turbo diesel engine are likely to be a fantastic pairing in this segment. It's still the only inline 6 in this segment. It still has that unique sound, that unique clatter that diesel fans absolutely love. So stay tuned, because we're going to be driving this pretty soon, and we will let you know as much as we can at that point in time. As always, hit that subscribe button down there in the comments section below. Of course, you can also call us, leave your voicemails there. You can be featured in future podcast or live show episodes and tell us what you think about this. Has Ram done enough? Should they have completely reinvented the wheel? Should we have had a 100% new Ram 2500 and 3500? Or is this exactly what you've been shopping for? See you later.